Okay, welcome back to the final hour of the Howie Rose Show here on theradiator.org. Our guest is Arnie Gundersen, former nuclear industry exec and currently expert witness in all sorts of cases regarding nuclear power plants failing. So, Arnie, let's talk about what's going on currently, what the current state of affairs is regarding Entergy and Vermont Yankee and the NRC.
Well, there was this week and next week, and perhaps the next week after that will be interesting, important weeks for the Vermont Yankees' relationship with the state of Vermont. On Wednesday night, 2 days ago, there was a meeting down in Brattleboro. The NRC came to discuss Vermont Yankees' performance for the last year, and the NRC's position, it was fine. And then, of course, there was a large contingent, about over, as I understand it, over 100 people, basically with exactly the opposite position. And they talked for about 3 hours, and both sides went home unconvinced that the other one was right. So that's pretty standard for Brattleboro once a year when the NRC does that. But more importantly, yesterday and today down in Brattleboro, Entergy is suing the state of Vermont, claiming that only the NRC can force a power plant to shut down, and of course the state of Vermont has voted that Vermont Yankee will shut down. So the state attorney general and also the state of Massachusetts are both arguing that states have the right to shut a nuclear plant down, and Entergy is saying that states don't have that right. So the hearing is in front of a federal judge, not a state judge, because they're arguing whether or not the United States government has authority over the state in this area. So it's a federal hearing. And then on top of that, though, it's not the trial. It's what Vermont Yankees' position is that we need your permission, Your Honor, to continue operating while the trial is going on. So they're really arguing about whether, in the judge's opinion, Vermont Yankee has a legal argument that holds water. And so that judge is going to make the decision in the next 2 or 3 weeks on whether or not Vermont Yankee has the chance of prevailing in court.
Which would mean they could continue operating during the course of the suit.
Yes.
And the suit might take
4, 5, 6 years. Yeah. It could continue for a long, long time.
So would it be in there, would it be good from a business point of view, would it make sense, even if they lost, to operate for the next 4, 5, 6 years?
Oh, they'll spend maybe $10 million a year on lawyers, but that's cheaper than maintaining a power plant. Yeah, lawyers are cheap compared to properly operating a power plant. Yeah. Then the other thing that's going on is that Attorney General Sorrell has been investigating the Entergy, we'll call them misstatements under oath, that occurred back last year when Entergy execs said there were no underground pipes, and of course that was proven to be wrong. So Attorney General Sorrell has been investigating that since February of 2010. So now he's got a 15-month-long investigation, and he's told Shea Totten of 7 Days put it out that Attorney General Sorrell is going to make the decision before the 4th of July on whether or not he's going to indict these Entergy executives. So a busy couple weeks coming up.
Now, if he does indict them, can we stop saying misstatements under oath and start saying lies?
Yes, when he indicts them, we can say alleged lies as opposed to misstatements under oath.
Okay. That kills me, those kind of weasel words, that kind of double talk. Okay, so can we talk briefly about Bernie Sanders and anything interesting from your perspective on what he's been doing in regards to all this?
Bernie's staff and Bernie, I guess we have to call him Senator Sanders, or we can call him Bernie. Huh? And
as Vermonters, yeah, we're on a first-name basis. Yeah.
And then also Ed Markey in Massachusetts have been leading Representative Markey's in the House, Bernie's in the Senate. They're probably the two most outspoken advocates of better control over nuclear power plants by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Well, they and several other senators asked the General Accounting Office to go in and take a look at underground pipes and the NRC's program. And the General Accounting Office just came back with a report. And the report says that the NRC doesn't have a law on underground pipe. The NRC gave it to the industry to do as a voluntary initiative. So therefore, if they don't do it, there's no teeth in regulation to force them to do it. The Vermont Yankee was found about a year ago to have not complied with the voluntary initiative. But again, there's no teeth in the law because it's a voluntary initiative. But the other thing that came out is AP, Associated Press, just did 3 phenomenal stories in the last week. And I think there's one more coming. But the first one basically said that the NRC, when the industry doesn't meet regulation, the NRC lowers the bar and changes the regulation.
There's
down.
a pattern of that. There's a history.
They outlined, it was a very long story. And you can get it up on, it was AP Impact is the group, and the major reporter is a guy named Jeff Donn, D-O-N-N. So anyway, AP did that story and basically showed that every time the industry has a problem, like, well, let's take fire protection for example, or containment, we'll do containment strainers. It's like, if you get hair in the bathroom drain, it doesn't go down. Well, in a nuclear plant,
they have that same problem.
They have that same problem in the bottom of the nuclear containment. And after an accident, you have to suck water from the bottom of the containment. Well, the NRC is known since, they gave a report to a president. I'll tell you the president in a minute here, that there was a problem with this containment drain clogging with rubble, essentially getting hair in the drain. And they needed to do something about it. The president was Jimmy Carter. And it affected 60 power plants.
Wow.
So since Jimmy Carter's presidency, the industry has known that the containment drains will clog, and they still don't have the problem solved. And the NRC just keeps giving them more time and just lowering the bar and lowering the bar and lowering the bar. Same on fire protection. There was a very severe accident at Browns Ferry where we almost lost Alabama. There was a fire under the control room, and they jury-rigged and managed to control the plant, but basically it was out of control. And now still a half a dozen, no more than that, a dozen power plants still don't meet fire protection, including Browns Ferry that had the fire in the first place. So that was first. AP's second story was on the underground pipe program. And the third story was on how evacuation planning is marginal at best. And the fourth story is coming out, I think, next week.
Interesting when such a mainstream establishment machine like AP, turns on the system, essentially, kind of bites the hand that feeds it.
Right after the AP story came out, the NRC felt pressured to issue a press release saying, we're really a tough regulator and we don't believe the AP piece. And then the more interesting piece is the NEI, the Nuclear Energy Institute, the industry trade group, came out with a press release saying, yeah, the NRC is really a tough regulator, and we think the AP story is wrong. So not only did the NRC circle the wagons, but then the industry circled the wagons around the NRC because of the AP story.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't. It's not very believable if the NRC is such a tough regulator. Why is the industry going out of its way to protect its reputation? Right. So now, what happens if the courts back up Entergy and the NRC and overrule the state legislature? What will that look like?
Vermont Yankee could continue to run for years as it works its way through the courts. It wouldn't surprise me that it would get to 2015 before this thing ever has a trial. Now, meanwhile, what's happening is Vermont Yankee needs to install a new condenser in 2015, and that's $100 million capital investment that they'd have to make. It's sort of like putting a new radiator in their car. But I guess your station would call it a radiator, but a radiator in their car. The condenser does that, and it costs $100 million. And I question whether or not, when they get to 2015, will they make that investment, or will they just shut it down on their own? So is this a 20-year strategy or a delaying tactic? Only time will tell.
And I imagine that their decision might be partly based on how things go for them in the courts over the next 10 years.
Well, what's happened in the power market is that there's an abundance of natural gas. And whether you like it or not, there's abundance of natural gas, and it comes from something called hydrofracking, which is causing aquifers in Pennsylvania to catch fire, and people are opening up their spigots and flames shoot out, things like that. But that process is creating an abundance of natural gas. That's driven down the price of electricity to the point where it's cheaper than nuclear. So so Vermont Yankee's not the low-cost producer on the grid right now, and that's an interesting dilemma. If gas prices stay that low, it's almost impossible to justify $100 million of capital improvement in a power plant that's at that point 45 years old. So that'll be a decision. That'll be a decision based on money come 2015.
So would you describe Vermont Yankee as notably worse and more egregious, or are they just your average typical power plant?
The panel found that I was on the oversight panel, and there's 5 of us, and we signed a unanimous report. And the panel found that it's not Vermont Yankee, it's Entergy. As a corporation, they pinch pennies on the reliability-related issues of the plant. If the NRC says it's a safety issue, they'll spend the money. But on anything outside of that, the turbine and the generator and the transformers and the paint on the containment, on and on and on, they don't spend enough money to maintain the plant. In Vermont, it was not adequately maintaining the underground pipes, and the panel discovered that. In Vermont, too, it was the cooling towers. Entergy had 3 employees come forward and say, we think we need another inspection of those cooling towers, and they didn't want to spend the money to do the inspection. Now, at Indian Point, Entergy invited in 12 experts at Indian Point, and they came to the same conclusion, that you're not spending enough money on your power plant. So I don't think it's Vermont Yankee. I think it's an Entergy issue.
And they own how many nuclear power plants?
Well, they own 11, 5 in the north. They had a strategy back 10 years ago to go out and buy old nuclear power plants. And the 5 in the north are all have all sprung tritium leaks and things like that. The 5 or 6 in the south are newer and are in a different corporate arrangement. So there really is a difference between the northern plants and how they're run and the southern plants and how they're run within Entergy.